Hey guys, welcome back to Flag Friday. For episode 2, we're going to be doing France. This should be an interesting one because France is actually one of the oldest nations in the world. Seriously though, France has been inhabited since before the Roman Empire existed, and because of this, I can't fit a whole lot of French history in this video because doing so would take hours. So I'm just going to jump ahead to about when they started using flags. So we start our story in 1124. At this time, France was a monarchy being ruled by the House of Capet, more specifically Louis VI. He decides to start using the banner of St. Denis, known as the Oriflamme, in combat. When it was flown, it was meant to symbolize that no mercy was to be given to the enemy. This was symbolized by its red color. It was likely used in these battles here. The internet wasn't 100% sure on which ones it was actually used in, but it was in the pictures for the Battle of Mons-en-Pleivelle, the Battle of Crécy, and the Battle of Ruzebeke. So you can take that for what it's worth. While researching, I saw these flags listed as well at around the same time period. They say they're the banners of the Kingdom of France, but I couldn't find much more about them than that. The Wikipedia page doesn't mention the flags again, and the Google image search wasn't that helpful. If I had to guess, I would say that these flags were used by the monarchy back then. Maybe the Oriflamme was just a battle flag, and this was the flag for the government. I honestly don't know. Alright, so after this, things get somewhat confusing. In the 1360s, new French symbolism emerged. There were these two things, which were listed as the Banner of the Kingdom of France and the Royal Banner of Early Modern France. There's also this, which is listed as the Flag of the Kingdom of France. So now we have like 3 flags that were all apparently in use at around the same time. So what's going on here? Did France just like have 3 different flags for no reason? This got me thinking that there had to be a difference between flags and banners, and sure enough, that seemed to be correct. So a banner and a flag are pretty similar, besides some things like shape and manner of display. However, banners are definitely different from flags. One thing that makes them different is the fact that banners were commonly used to represent households. So from my understanding, these royal banners of France are meant to represent the royal family of France, which in this case was the Bourbons. But something weird I noticed was that the banner was apparently around long before the Bourbons came into power. However, this is explainable. The House of Bourbon actually existed since 1272, and this pattern was likely their symbol since around this time. It likely began to see more widespread use after the Bourbons took the throne. Anyways, that leaves the white fleur-de-lis one as the actual French flag. There's also this variation of it, which is called the State Flag of France. After doing some further digging, it's literally just another royal standard that was apparently only used in the presence of the king. This source says it was only the standard of Louis XV and XVI, so either way it's not all that important. Now back to the white fleur-de-lis one. This flag was definitely in use for a long time. Like a really long time, almost 450 years. The flag was then changed to this one for like a year under Louis XVI, and then was changed again by the French Revolution. The French Revolution altered almost everything about France, including the flag. The French revolutionaries quickly adopted red, white, and blue as their colors of choice. I wonder where they got that from. Anyways, white was for the monarchy, and red and blue were for the city of Paris. Here's a couple of the revolutionary flags, by the way. This one eventually emerged as the flag of the First French Republic in 1792. It was under this government that the tricolor was made the official national flag of France. However, the story of this flag's journey is far from over. The tricolor was used for the entire duration of the First French Republic, and was also used by Napoleon under his reign. While researching, I also saw this flag listed as the flag of the First French Empire instead of the tricolor. This flag wasn't listed on any of the lists I was using, but it was the first result when I looked up French Empire flag. I tried to find more information on this flag to see if it became the official French flag under Napoleon, but I really couldn't find much information on it. So I kept digging to try and explain what this was, and I eventually found that this coat of arms in the middle is actually the coat of arms of Napoleon. So maybe this is just a variant of the French flag and saw limited use or something. I don't really think it ever became an official French flag though, because if it was, I feel like there'd be a lot more information available on it. Also, this flag here was listed as Napoleon's imperial standard. I'm pretty certain that this one was never an official French flag, and it was likely just a flag meant to represent Napoleon personally, similar to how those royal banners from earlier probably represented the royal family. This seems to be a pretty commonplace thing, because in my research, I found that many of the people in power in France had some kind of standard or symbol on a banner that was meant to represent them. Anyways, after Napoleon was dethroned, a period known as the Bourbon Restoration began. This was a period between the reign of Napoleon and the July monarchy, where the Bourbon monarchy was briefly restored. Seeing as the old monarchy was in charge again, Louis XVII decided to ditch the tricolor and start using this one instead. This is a flag that both Louis XVII and his successor Charles X would serve under. This new period of Bourbon reign didn't really last long though. The family was upended again in the July revolutions only a couple years into their reinstated reign. France was overtaken by an Orleanist called Louis Philippe. The French people started to get sick of the House of Bourbon again and had an uprising which allowed him to seize power. While he was in power, he returned the flag to the tricolor. Here was his standard. Interestingly, it's just a tricolor with his crest on it. So, surely the tricolor is here to stay now, right? Well, like everything else in this video, the answer isn't really straightforward. The July monarchy was overthrown by yet another revolution. The result of this revolution was the Second French Republic. Their flag was either this version of the tricolor or just a normal tricolor. The sources I looked at all had conflicting information. Personally, I think it's more likely that they just stuck with the tricolor instead of changing it to this, but either way, the Second French Republic only lasted for around 4 years. The Second French Republic would collapse when Napoleon's nephew, Napoleon III, was elected president. He decided to follow in his uncle's footsteps and declared the Second French Empire. Now, this is where things start to get murky again. There are 4 different possible options for what the flag could have been at this time. There's this one with the Napoleonic coat of arms and all these fleur-de-lises on it, this one with only the fleur-de-lises, then this one with only the coat of arms, and then maybe there's just the normal tricolor. So let's try and narrow this down. I found only one source listing the only fleur-de-lis one, so I think it's safe to rule out. I saw several sources saying that it was this one with just the coat of arms on it, but there also weren't very many of these, and I only really saw it when it was plastered all over things people were trying to sell, so I don't really think it was that one either. So that really only leaves us with 2, and I think the same thing happening here is what happened with Napoleon, where this flag was either just Napoleon III Standard, or some variant that saw limited use. So that leaves just a tricolor, still being the nation's official flag. There's also the fact that Napoleon III clearly took heavy inspiration from his uncle, so if Napoleon used the tricolor, there's a very high chance that Napoleon III wouldn't change it. Anyways, despite his attempts to become a great conqueror, Napoleon III fell completely short of his uncle. A Napoleon light, if you will. Napoleon III ruled for 18 years and eventually was dethroned after losing the Franco-Prussian War. In addition to losing their leader, France also lost the territories of Alsace and Lorraine to the newly formed German Empire. So now the year is 1870, and the Third Republic of France has been established in the aftermath of the collapse of Napoleon III's reign. This republic would last all the way up until World War II, when Hitler created the puppet state known as Vichy France. Under the Third French Republic, France sharply shifted away from any semblance of a monarchist government and turned France into a much more democratic country. This is also when France continued engaging in massive imperialism and became a colonial superpower. As for the flag, it remained as the tricolor. Again, if you look up Third French Republic flag, you'll get tons of variations, which were probably not the official one. None of the sources I looked at cited any of these as being the official French flag at the time. Anyways, in 1940, France became a fascist puppet state headed up by this guy, Philippe Pétain. Under his rule of France, he kept a tricolor. Here's his personal standard, which is sometimes used to represent Vichy France. Anyways, while the puppet state was in place, the old French government formed a counter-movement called Free France, whose flag looked like this. The resistance group fought against Vichy France and the rest of the Axis. They ended up getting pretty big, and eventually, with the help of the Allies, pushed Germany out of France. After this, the Fourth French Republic was formed, and after that, the Fifth, which is the one that's still in power today. Throughout all of that, though, the tricolor has remained the official flag. However, in 2021, it was actually changed again, but the change is so minute that not very many people even noticed. Emmanuel Macron, the current president of France, recently changed the shade of blue on the flag to a more dark navy color. The shade of blue on the French flag alters quite a bit anyways, depending on where you get the flag, so this change isn't really that significant. Anyways, that's about it, the entire vexillological history of France. This video took a long time to research and write, but I think it made a good episode, so it was definitely worth it. If you enjoyed, please like, comment, subscribe, and share this video around. Bye!